You know that specific feeling when your phone vibrates? It's not just a notification. It's a tiny physical spike of adrenaline in your chest. You look at the screen. It's a message from someone you actually like. Maybe it's a friend, a family member, or a colleague. You read the preview. You know exactly what they want. In your head, you formulate the perfect reply. You think, I'll send that in 5 minutes when I have the mental space. But then you swipe the notification away. 5 minutes becomes 5 hours. 5 hours becomes 5 days. And now, the message isn't just a text anymore. It has mutated into a monolith of guilt. Every time you unlock your phone, that unread badge stares at you, judging you. You aren't replying, but you aren't forgetting either. You are carrying the weight of that silence everywhere you go. The world has a name for this behavior. They call it ghosting. They call it flakiness. If you ask your friends, they might jokingly say, "You're just bad at texting." If you ask your inner critic, it probably tells you that you are lazy, uncaring, or a terrible friend. Society operates on a rhythm of instant gratification and constant availability. If you don't match that rhythm, the assumption is that you don't care. But here's the thing. If you didn't care, you wouldn't feel the guilt. If you were truly indifferent, you would forget the message existed. The fact that this silence haunts you is proof that you care, perhaps too much. Today, we are going to look at why your silence is actually a scream for preservation. What you're experiencing is not indifference. It is what psychologists call communication paralysis, and it is a symptom of something much deeper: protective overload management. Your nervous system is not reacting to a simple text message. It is reacting to a demand. When your brain is already operating at capacity, juggling work stress, sensory input, and emotional processing, a new message isn't just data. It is a request for energy you simply do not have. This is not a character flaw. It is a biological calculation. Your brain is slamming the gate shut to conserve your remaining resources. You aren't ghosting people. You are surviving them. Let's analyze exactly why a simple "Hey, how are you?" feels so heavy. To a neurotypical or extroverted brain, that message is a closed circuit. They read it, they type, "Good, you?" and they hit send. The circuit closes. Dopamine is released. But that is not how your brain works. When you see that message, you don't just see the text, you see the future. You know that replying "good" isn't the end, it's the opening of a loop. It invites a follow-up. It requires you to be available for the next 10 minutes of banter. It requires emotional labour. You instantly simulate the entire conversation in your mind before you type a single letter. You calculate the energy required for the whole interaction, realise you are currently in a deficit, and decide you can't afford the cost of that loop right now. This mental simulation is what drains you. It's a phenomenon linked to open loops in cognitive psychology. The Zeigarnik effect states that our brains hold on to unfinished tasks tighter than finished ones. For most people, an unread text is just a notification. For you, an unread text is an open loop that consumes working memory. But here is the catch. Replying opens a social loop, which feels unpredictable and dangerous to an exhausted nervous system. By not replying, you are trying to avoid opening a new loop. But by leaving it unread, you keep the old loop open. You are trapped in a paradox. You are expending more energy worrying about the text than it would take to answer it. Yet the barrier to entry feels insurmountable. This is often tied to task paralysis, seen in ADHD and high-functioning anxiety. Your executive function, the CEO of your brain, has gone on strike. So, where is the advantage in this paralyzing loop? It lies in why you simulate the conversation. You do it because you are a depth processor. You don't view communication as transactional ping-pong. You view it as a transfer of meaning. You want to give a real answer, not a placeholder. The reason you don't just type K or good is that you value authenticity. You are waiting for a moment where you can provide a high-quality response. In a world of surface-level chatter, your silence is actually a quality control mechanism. You refuse to dilute the connection with half-hearted autopilot responses. The people who wait for you often realize that when you do show up, you show up completely. But there is a darker reason some of you do this. It's not just about energy or quality. It's about fear. Not the fear of the person texting you, but the fear of being perceived incorrectly. This brings us to the second major layer of the ghosting phenomenon: texting anxiety as a performance art. Picture this. You finally summon the energy to open the chat. You type out a reply. It looks okay. Then you read it again. Is it too cold? Does that period make you look aggressive? Maybe you should add an exclamation point. No, that looks fake. You add an emoji. You delete the emoji. You type a completely different sentence. You stare at the blinking cursor. The longer you stare, the more the words seem to lose their meaning. Suddenly, the stakes feel incredibly high. You worry that if you send the wrong thing, you will be misunderstood, or worse, rejected. Overwhelmed by the pressure of this micro-performance, you close the app again. You tell yourself, I'll send it when I know exactly what to say. You have just ghosted them again, not out of apathy, but out of perfectionism. Therapists classify this as texting anxiety, often rooted in social perfectionism. In face-to-face conversation, you don't have time to edit. You rely on tone, facial expressions, and body language to convey nuance. Texting strips all of that away. It leaves you with naked data, words on a screen, that are easily misinterpreted. For someone with high social anxiety or rejection-sensitive dysphoria, RSD, a text message is a minefield. Your brain treats the draft box like a courtroom where you are being judged. The freeze response you feel is your amygdala hijacking your ability to act because it perceives the possibility of a social faux pas as a physical threat. You are trying to control the uncontrollable, how other people perceive you. The upside of this agonizing process? You are an intentional communicator. In an era of reactive, impulsive tweeting and messaging, you are the person who measures their words. You understand the weight of language. While others might trigger conflicts through careless phrasing, your hesitation often saves you from drama. Your friends may be frustrated by your speed, but they likely trust your judgment. When you speak, you mean it. This careful curation of thought is a superpower in high-stakes situations: crisis management, serious emotional support, or professional negotiation, where the wrong word can cost everything. Your brain is wired for precision, not speed. We've talked about the psychology of perfectionism, but we need to go deeper into the biology. Because sometimes you don't ghost because you're worried about wording. You ghost because looking at your phone literally makes you feel sick. This is where your unique neurology comes into play. If you are sensitive to noise, light, or crowded rooms, your phone is not a phone. It is a sensory weapon. Think about the environment of your phone. It is bright, it is loud, it is constantly changing. When you are having a bad day, maybe you have a headache or you're just socially drained, the act of unlocking your phone feels physically abrasive. It's like walking into a crowded nightclub when you have the flu. You see 5 unread messages from 3 different apps. You see red badges. You see news alerts. To your brain, this isn't information. It is assault. You might find yourself turning on Do Not Disturb, not because you are busy working, but because you need the input to stop. You physically cannot process one more byte of data, so you shut the gate. This is explained by the concept of sensory gating. In a neurotypical brain, the mind is able to filter out irrelevant stimuli and focus on what matters. But for many people with high sensitivity, ADHD, or autism, that gate is leaky. Everything comes in at once. A text message adds cognitive load to an already overflowing bucket. This leads to what researchers call sensory overload. When your system is overloaded, it initiates a shutdown protocol. It withdraws from social interaction to protect the core processor. It's not a choice, it's a reflex. Wikipedia defines sensory overload as the body's inability to process incoming stimuli, leading to stress and withdrawal. Your ghosting is literally your nervous system pulling the emergency brake to prevent a meltdown. The flip side of sensory overload is high sensory intelligence. The same brain that gets overwhelmed by too many notifications is the brain that notices the subtle change in a friend's tone of voice. It's the brain that picks up on the beautiful details of a song or the shifting mood in a room. You are highly attuned to your environment. This sensitivity makes you empathetic and observant. The cost of this high-definition perception is that you require more downtime to process the data. You aren't fragile. You are a high-performance machine that overheats if it doesn't get adequate cooling time. Your withdrawal is necessary maintenance for your empathy. The world tells you to just reply. Just send a thumbs up. Eat the frog. But I'm going to tell you why that advice often fails you. It fails because it ignores the chemical addiction you have formed to avoidance itself. You aren't just protecting energy anymore. You are reinforcing a fear loop. This is the mechanism that turns a one-day delay into a 3-month silence. Here is the cycle. You see the text, anxiety spikes, you decide to ignore it for now. Immediately, the anxiety drops. You feel a wave of relief. You go back to scrolling Instagram or watching Netflix. That relief is delicious. But it is temporary. An hour later, the thought returns. I still haven't replied. The anxiety comes back, but this time it brings a friend. Guilt. Now the message is heavier than it was an hour ago. So you avoid it again to get that hit of relief. You are training your brain like a dog. Every time you ignore the message, you reward yourself with lowered anxiety. This is negative reinforcement. By the time 3 days have passed, the message feels radioactive. You aren't replying because now a reply requires an apology, an explanation, and a confession of your own inadequacy. Clinical psychology defines this as avoidant coping. It is a maladaptive strategy where a person changes their behavior to avoid thinking about, feeling, or doing difficult things. A Reddit thread on CPTSD captures this perfectly. I can go years thinking daily about a text I should respond to. I like the person, I just can't make myself do it. The brain learns that the inbox is a source of pain, so it develops an aversion to it. It's the same mechanism behind phobias. You have inadvertently developed a phobia of your own communication channels. The guilt you feel is actually a sign that your values, being a good friend, are in conflict with your survival mechanism, avoiding the pain. Is there an advantage to this painful cycle? Yes. It forces you to confront your limits. This cycle is a brutal teacher that shows you exactly where your boundaries lie. It is telling you that you are overextended. People who never ghost, who reply instantly to everyone, often suffer from a different problem. They live their lives entirely for others. They have no walls. You, on the other hand, have very thick walls. While this causes friction, it also means that the people who remain in your life are the ones who respect your pace. You are inadvertently filtering your social circle for high patience, low maintenance connections, which are exactly the kind of connections you need. Let's talk about what happens when you do have energy. You notice that you don't ghost everyone. If your boss emails you, you reply. If your child needs you, you answer. You ghost the people who are safe. This makes you feel like a hypocrite. You think, I can reply to work, so why can't I reply to my best friend? The answer lies in energy economics. You only have so many units of energy, or spoons, per day. Essential survival tasks get the first spoons. Keeping your job gets spoons. Feeding yourself gets spoons. By the time you get to optional social interaction, the drawer is empty. You aren't choosing to ignore your friend. You are simply bankrupt. This aligns with ego depletion theory and the spoon theory popularized in chronic illness communities. Every decision, every interaction, and every sensory input costs glucose and neural resources. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for social etiquette and complex thought, is the most energy-expensive part of the brain. When you are burnt out, the brain down-regulates activity in the prefrontal cortex to save energy for the amygdala and brainstem, the parts that keep you alive. Messaging is a high cognitive task. It requires empathy, memory, and linguistic planning. When you are running on fumes, your brain literally cannot afford the luxury of texting. This budgeting makes you an unwitting essentialist. You strip away the non-essential to keep the core machinery running. While the world demands you be everything to everyone, your biology refuses. It forces you to prioritize survival and immediate responsibilities. This is a survival strength. In a true crisis, you are the person who focuses on what actually matters: safety, health, basic needs, because you are used to operating with limited resources. You know how to conserve. You know how to survive the winter. So, where do we go from here? The solution isn't to force yourself to become a rapid response texting machine. That will only lead to deeper burnout and more ghosting. The solution is to accept your wiring. You are a low-frequency, high-fidelity communicator. You are built for deep dives, not constant treading water. Stop apologizing for your nature. Instead, communicate your manual. Tell your people, I love you. I am bad at phones. If I don't reply, I am not mad, I am just overwhelmed. Please don't take it personally. The people who matter will understand. The ones who don't fit your wiring will fall away, and that is okay. If you recognized yourself in this analysis, if you felt that adrenaline spike when I mentioned the unread badge, then you are part of this tribe. You are not broken. You are simply protecting your peace in a world that demands too much of it. If you want to understand more about how your mind works and how to navigate a loud world with a quiet brain, stick around. We dig deep here. We don't do small talk. And if you need to take 3 days to leave a comment on this video, take your time. We'll still be here.